Lord of Mystery. The Return of the Stars Chapter 261–270. Hasta Campbell. Inns Zangwill almost gritted his teeth when he said this name. He didn't expect that he still couldn't escape the traction of fate in the end, and was still blocked by this Hasta. And it was when he was the weakest. Hasta smiled and said, "You don't have to look so ugly, and your facial expression doesn't have to be so hideous. I won't sit and wait for death." Inns Zangwill would never allow himself to fall here today. He took out 008 and started writing at a high speed. At this time, a ray of light bloomed, and his right hand holding 008 was directly cut off, and 008 fell to the ground. Only then did he realize that in addition to the fallen 008, there was also an exquisite mirror on the ground. Someone was hiding in the mirror and attacking him. When this thought came to his mind, a scream of resentful souls came into his mind. His reaction paused again, and at the same time, the ice gathered, freezing him from foot to head into an ice sculpture. At this time, Hasta had already activated the ability of the war emblem, wearing neat armor, holding a golden sword and slashing across the sky. When the golden sword was about to shatter Inns Zangwill into ice along with the ice, he finally opened his mythical form again. The swollen flesh and blood burst the shackles of the ice, and the two extra arms grew to resist the golden sword that was cut down. "It turns out that you are weaker than I thought." Inns Zangwill was surprised to find out Hasta's true strength during the contact. The mysterious existence that could threaten 008 was not as strong as himself in a head-on battle. After the surprise, there was extreme anger. His other arm swung and hit Hasta's shoulder directly, making a loud bang. The armor was dented, but Hasta's figure did not retreat half a step, but appeared taller. The eyes exposed outside the armor showed a scarlet light. The golden sword that had been resisted was blessed by the huge force, and it broke free from the shackles of the two arms and smashed down heavily, cutting off a part of his left shoulder. Desire. An ethereal and elegant voice sounded, and the mental world of Inns Zangwill, who wanted to fight back, was in chaos and began to lose balance. His desires sprang up like bamboo shoots after rain, constantly attacking his already fragile mental defenses. Hasta saw this and cooperated with Sharon's attack, exerting the extraordinary ability of the Night Path, and the mental impact turned into a sledgehammer, completely smashing Inns Zangwill's last mental defense. He was completely controlled by desire and fell into complete madness. At this time, his mythical form was distorted again. The flesh and blood on his body grew and expanded several times, like a big ball of meat, and 8 arms covered with white feathers grew out. His head collapsed into the meatball, and his face cracked, revealing creepy eyeballs. It looked like a giant spider monster with 8 arms. "Let's go." Hasta didn't hesitate, took the mirror on the ground and 008 away from here. He didn't want to stay and fight to the death with Inns Zangwill, who turned into a monster. His life was more precious than Inns Zangwill's. If he used the fate spell given by Will to deal with Inns Zangwill, he felt it was too wasteful. Let the crazy monster Inns Zangwill stay here to fend for himself. Besides, the person who really targeted Inns Zangwill tonight was not him. He just heard the noise and took Sharon to see what was going on. But he happened to see Inns Zangwill running away frantically, so he had the idea of targeting him and taking away 008. Hasta retreated a distance, and Inns Zangwill did not catch up, but frantically destroyed everything nearby. Now he has completely lost his mind. As for whether he can regain his mind, Hasta has no relevant experience. Hasta looked down at the mirror in the palm of his right hand and said with a smile, "Let's go back to sleep." This seems a bit ambiguous, but it doesn't matter. Don't we need to eliminate him completely? A crazy demigod who has turned into a monster. If we want to deal with him, we will inevitably get into a long battle, and we may get hurt. Let's leave him to others to deal with. Hasta said, and raised 008 in his left hand again. We have obtained the most important thing from him. Well, good. After a brief exchange, Hasta's figure disappeared. After he left, the shocking scene of falling meteors appeared again in the sky. Late at night, in the room, Azishara was pouting a stinky cat face, staring at her owner who had returned from going out with an unhappy face. It obviously wanted to join in the fun, but it was assigned to stay in the room to guard the luggage. Meow, if you really bully a cat, won't it protest? Hasta didn't have time to deal with Azishara for the time being, so he asked Sharon to comfort Azishara, who was about to explode. The most important thing at the moment was how to seal 008 to prevent its breath from leaking out and attracting Adam's attention. Ins Zangwill is the person Adam has been watching. 08's loss tonight will definitely attract Adam's investigation. It is safer to throw him directly into the Hall of Stars, but there are also hidden dangers. This is his biggest secret now, and he can't easily reveal it to 008. Will's fate is concealed, and it may interfere with Adam's investigation of 008. Hasta took out the destiny charm from his jacket pocket, found a thin thread, and tied the destiny charm to 008's pen. It looks like a small pendant for 008. Want to hang another one? Sharon came over with Azishara in her arms. When she saw Hasta's actions, she knew what he wanted to do. No, if this doesn't work, one more one won't change anything. What are you worried about? The master hidden behind this quill. You shouldn't have brought it back. Hasta smiled and said, now that we have encountered it, we can't just watch it slip away from us. Moreover, this thing is very useful and can help us achieve many things. Well, be careful. Meow. Azishara also let out a meow, to the effect that since you are out on an adventure, I will generously forgive you for leaving a cat behind. For the sake of your obedient stay today, you are allowed to eat a small dried fish for breakfast tomorrow. Meow? Hasta ignored the protesting Azishara, came to the desk, took out a blank piece of paper, and it was time to chat with 008. Move it yourself, I know you can sense what's happening in the outside world. Hasta placed 008 on the blank paper, and then under the surprised gazes of Sharon and Azishara, the quill stood up on its own. It did not need to be dipped in ink, and it wrote paragraphs of text on the blank paper. Ins Zangwill finally failed. As early as when he took me away, I knew he wouldn't be a great person. With my help, he only used it to plan opportunities to advance to Sequence 4. It's serious, lower my status. Even in a small place like Tingen, his stupidity was really impressive. Later, I figured out that Ins Zangwill was not a qualified master, so I decided to abandon the dark side and turn to the bright side, by your side. In these days, I have rewritten a lot of Ins Zangwill's fate so that he will always maintain a certain connection with you. Finally tonight, you succeeded in getting me from Ins Zangwill. Hasta raised his eyebrows slightly and said nonchalantly, do you think I need your help? I am just a pen. Whoever holds me is my new master. It is my duty to help the master. Hasta chuckled and said, aren't you thinking about how to write me to death? Great master, it is a great honor for me to be the pen in your hands. How could I dare to have such rebellious thoughts? Your level of deception needs to be improved. What the master said is that I must practice hard next time and try to hide my insights from the master. Oh, what I said is really unreasonable. Is this how 008 gets along with Ins Zangwill? No wonder Ins Zangwill has such bad luck, meow? Azishara, who had been looking at it for a long time, jumped down from Sharon's arms, landed on the table, and stared at 008 seriously. It was amazing that this quill pen that no one was holding could actually write by itself. Oh, silly little kitten, do you want me to write an adventure story script for you? Meow? You don't have to doubt. My abilities are beyond your imagination, you just need to choose to believe. Meow? You said you still can't read? Your master didn't teach you to read? That's really irresponsible. It's a pity that I can't communicate with you. Otherwise I can teach you to understand all languages, Grandmaster. Hasta couldn't stand it anymore, so he reached out and picked up the curious Azishara, and warned it not to approach 008 casually in the future. With 008's ability to confuse people, if Azishara learns to read, she will definitely be deceived. This pen. Sharon also saw what was unique about 008, a sealed artifact with complete self-awareness. This kind of thing has always been scary. 008, who noticed Sharon's gaze, wrote on the blank paper again. Oh, beautiful lady, future hostess, is there anything you need my help with? The scene was quiet for a while, and Sharon's usually calm face was slightly moved. She just took a curious look, and didn't expect that this pen would write such a sentence. Finally, her eyes looked at Hasta. You really need to be punished more and more. Woo woo woo, please forgive me for being blunt for a while. Have you always been so naughty? Or do you think that such a disguise can make me let down my guard against you? 008 turned a circle on the blank paper, and then continued to write. Trust is a very luxurious thing. No matter how hard I try, you will not completely trust me. Why should I waste this time? Hee hee, I hope you are not a fool like Ins Zangwill, otherwise I will have to change a new owner again, which is really troublesome. The feather pen that had been standing upright fell down and lay motionless. Is it angry? Hasta was a little confused about O8's specific personality for a while. He couldn't coax it, right? I don't know. Sharon blocked Hasta's question first. Snap. The feather pen lying on the paper stood up again and quickly wrote a paragraph on the blank space. My new master, you are different from the fool that is Ince Zangwill. His trust is of no value to me, but your trust is a gift to me. Is this a dog-licking mode again? Hasta couldn't help asking. Is that dog-licking mirror a relative of yours? Like this? 008 added a blooming firework after this sentence. So the new master likes this kind of service of being licked by others, which is really disgusting. No, it's really a unique hobby. Well, in order to gain the master's trust, I am willing to silently endure this ruthless whipping. Please have mercy on me. Hasta was too lazy to complain about O8's changeable temperament. Sharon, who was standing on the side, saw Hasta so speechless, and a rare smile appeared on her face, but it was a pity that it was short-lived, and only the little black cat Azishara saw it. No one paid attention to 008, who lay down again, quietly lying on the paper full of words. Looking at this, it was not much different from an ordinary feather pen. Well, I have to find a suitable pen case to put it in, and it would be better to lock it to prevent it from running away with its own legs. At night, Hasta, who couldn't find a suitable pen case, grabbed the fate spell in one hand and entered the dream. Through the fate spell, he could also get in touch with Will, who was far away in Backland. In the dream, Will was sitting in front of the desk, holding a feather pen in his hand, scribbling on a blank paper. Before Hasta asked, Will spoke first. I didn't expect 008 to fall into your hands. You know, you put the fate spell on 008's head, I can sense it a little bit. Is there any good way? Hasta said as he walked forward, ready to appreciate Will's painting. Will quickly crumpled the paper into a ball and threw it away. He also caught a trash can in the dream. He is a particular person. It's not difficult to cover up at a distance, but if you get too close, Adam will still feel it. Of course, this feeling is relative, and 008 will also feel it. As long as it doesn't want to be eaten, it will remind you to leave quickly. Is there no way to completely block this feeling? I don't have a way, but you do. Be more specific. That group of yellow monks seems to be very good at dealing with 008. Hearing this, Hasta was satisfied and immediately promised to send Will a bunch of ice cream. Hey, a blank check. Will curled his lips in disdain. Now Hasta is far away in South Wiltshire and it is difficult for him to take care of Backland's affairs. Then put it on the account first. South Wiltshire, Southwest Hinterland, Spelling City. From here, continue to the right through two large areas, it is Dacey County. The transportation is quite convenient, but many places in the jurisdiction are private territories of nobles, and it is impossible to develop in a coordinated manner. The economy depends on whether the noble lords are wise and powerful. Today, a carriage went along the dirt road to the mayor's mansion in the city center. Inside the carriage, Hasta pulled open the curtains to observe the situation near the street, such as the buildings, the residents' clothes, and the things they sell. From these tiny details, you can get a glimpse of the general situation here. After watching it, I was a little disappointed. Even the city looked so dilapidated, so my territory must be even poorer. It will take a long time to develop and expand, and I guess I can only grow food first. When the carriage arrived at the gate of the mayor's mansion, Hasta got off the carriage and paid the coachman 10 gold pounds for the carriage fee. This coachman has been dedicated for several days and deserves this price. When Hasta came to the door, the guard stopped him. After a brief report, Mayor Ron, the actual person in charge of this city of Spelling, walked out. He was about 50 years old, with a slightly protruding beer belly and a classic Mediterranean hairstyle. The few remaining strands of hair were already in danger. Are you Earl Hasta Campbell from Backland? Mayor Ron obviously couldn't believe that an earl from Backland would come to a small place like theirs. This is the king's appointment letter. Hasta took out a letter of appointment stamped with the seal of the King of Lowen Kingdom. He kept this thing with him and had not lost or destroyed it. So you are the heir of the Campbell family. After reading the appointment letter, Mayor Ron no longer had any doubts in his mind. He had also received news from the Grand Duke of South Wales that a young earl might arrive at his place and asked him to pay attention. Unexpectedly, in just a few days, the other party would already be in front of him. I almost forgot to ask you to come in and sit inside. Mayor Ron slapped his forehead and quickly invited Asta into the mayor's mansion. Judging from the title alone, the other party is greater than his title. He is only a viscount, and it is not hereditary. The streets outside are very poor, but there is no poverty here at all. Even the tea they enjoy is Highland tea specially shipped from the southern continent. After a brief chat, Mayor Ron asked, "Earl Campbell, have you met the Archduke of Southwell? After I settle here first, I will visit the Grand Duke. Is there any problem?" Mayor Ron poured another cup of tea for Asta, leaned forward slightly, and lowered his voice slightly. "That's it, the Archduke sent someone to notify me in the past few days, asking me to pay attention to your movements. If you encounter you must report it to the Grand Duke immediately." A lot of things happened along the way. No wonder the Grand Guild is so concerned. Hasta didn't pay too much attention to this matter. He was missing, but the person responsible for keeping an eye on it was still alive and well. He should be a guest at the Grand Duke of Southwell's house now. Then I will report the situation to the Grand Duke truthfully. Hasta then noticed that Mayor Ron didn't seem to side with the Archduke of Southwell and asked for his opinion. Did he not want to offend him because of this matter? "There's no rush, let me visit in person and give the Grand Duke a surprise." Fair enough. Mayor Ron breathed a sigh of relief. As the saying goes, a distant relative is worse than a close neighbor. He didn't want to offend this new neighbor from Backland because of the Archduke of South Wales. Moreover, a large part of the area within his own jurisdiction is the territory of Earl Campbell, and he will have to discuss many aspects with him in the future. "I want to see the map here, is it convenient?" "Of course you can." Mayor Ron quickly asked for a detailed map of the neighborhood, which contained detailed information about his territory. "From here to here, and from here to here, this is your current territory." Mayor Ron carefully encircled Hasta's territory. It is very conspicuous on this map, which only records a few nearby urban areas. Hasta's territory spans 3 urban areas. The largest part of the territory is within the city of Spellin, occupying many villages and towns on its outskirts. "Whose territory is the area around here?" Hasta pointed to the area near the port. "The land near the port does not belong to any nobles, but is managed directly by the Grand Duke." Hasta chuckled and said, "It seems that the Grand Duke cares about the security of the port. The hinterland area is relatively poor, and 70% of its finances rely on coastal port cities. This is a forbidden area for the Grand Duke, and no one is allowed to get involved." After Mayor Ron finished speaking, he gave Hasta a look that everyone understood. The port towns were the richest and were the source of great wealth. The two did not talk in depth for too long. During dinner, Mayor Ron warmly invited Asta to dine here and prepared some night entertainment for him, but Asta refused because of the long journey. The next day, Hasta followed the map's guidance to the central castle of his territory in South Wales. It was built by the ancestors of the Campbell family more than 30 years ago and has been preserved to this day. Previously, Hasta asked butler Neil to send some people to manage the basic daily cleaning of the castle. Last time, the monk in yellow who accepted his commission also sent back a letter, which told many things about South Wales. If he was smart enough, he would be waiting for me in the castle right now. The muddy road is flanked by plains. Various cash crops are planted on the fertile land. According to soil and rain conditions, it is subdivided into cotton plantations, sugarcane plantations, vineyards, flower plantations, and patches of land, oak forest. The barren land was overrun by weeds. Crows returning from foraging for food appeared in groups and landed on old trees that had not known how many years they had lived. At the end of the road, there are small towns. 2 large water wheels stand at the entrance of the town. The streams that divert water for irrigation push the water wheels to rotate slowly. The lazy sunlight shines on the farmers who are cultivating farmland on both sides, and the cattle grazing in groups come back eating green grass. Entering the town, the road is still a dirt road, but it has been flattened, and there will be no obvious dust when the carriage passes by. The items sold on both sides of the road are common fruits, melons and vegetables, as well as some self-made clothes, or dismembered prey that has just been returned from hunting. Most of the houses are 2 stories high. The ground floor is usually made of stone. There are wooden houses, some mud houses, and some tile houses bought at a high price. The center of the town is the most prosperous area. There is a large square where residents can rest and chat daily. There are beer houses, flower shops, and tailor shops nearby. All the way through the town, There is another deserted dirt road, but a row of fences are erected on both sides, as if to block something. Following this road to the end, there is a castle, hidden alone among the trees. This castle has a history of nearly 200 years. After several generations of Campbell family repairs, it is now made entirely of black stone. The architectural style maintains the ancient flavor, and there is also a castle in the back. A tall tower. It is said that there was an heir to the Campbell family who believed in the existence of magical magicians in the world and decided to build a high tower to attract magicians to stay. It's a pity that he didn't seem to find the magician he was longing for, leaving only this tower that has been passed down to this day. The sound of the carriage broke through the silence of the woods, and the birds in the forest flew away in fright. From the tower in the distance, a black flock of crows flew out. About 200 meters near the castle, the dirt road has been replaced by a flat stone road. The surrounding weeds gradually disappeared and were replaced by clusters of carefully maintained flowers and vegetation. When the carriage stopped at the gate of the castle, many people had gathered here. There was a maid sweeping the floor, a gardener armed with shears, a coachman leading the horse, and even the cook appeared with a large butcher's knife. In front of them was a relatively familiar figure, Keys. As expected, he was waiting for him here in advance, which showed that the monks in yellow clothes hiding in the dark knew his general whereabouts. Maybe they were the ones who secretly targeted Zangwill last time. Did they deliberately let themselves get 008? Hasta did not think too much and stepped out of the carriage under the gaze of many people. Earl Hasta Campbell, the true owner of this castle. Keys made a brief introduction to the gathered people, which shows that he has a certain prestige here. Hasta noticed that the eyes of those people were filled with curiosity and excitement, and some even wanted to step forward and stretch out their hands to confirm whether they were alive. A little weird. Don't worry, Lord Campbell. None of them have any malicious intentions. They just want to see the real owner of this castle with their own eyes. Keys had a smile on his face. Hasta's eyes narrowed, and a dangerous aura flashed all over his body. Are they all ordinary people guarding this castle? Keys replied respectfully. They are indeed guarding the castle for you. You look familiar with them. Some of them are quite familiar, and some of them are just acquaintances. We just met. Are they all recently recruited? Yes, we wanted to give you a surprise when you arrived in South Wales. Us. Yes, is us. Keys lowered his head slightly, his attitude more respectful than before. The maids, gardeners, coachmen, and chefs on the side also bowed slightly and saluted. Is it just these few people? There are also housekeepers in the castle who are responsible for maintaining the daily operations of the castle, and Mrs. Lisa who is in charge of all financial expenses. There are 2 more who have gone out to work. The number of people is really small. Not everyone can come. We all decide who comes through a fair drawing of lots. Hasta remained silent and did not speak, but looked at the castle with a more complicated look. He actually came to the lair of the monk in yellow. They have been waiting for them here for a long time. So they have not been very anxious all the time, because they are sure that they will set foot here one day, and they just need to wait here quietly. The surprise we have prepared is inside the castle. Do you want to go in and take a look now? After Keys finished speaking, he placed his left hand on his waist and stretched out his right hand gracefully in a gesture of invitation. The other 4 people divided into 2 rows to get out of the way. Meow. Ashera moved uneasily in Hasta's arms, seeming to remind Hasta not to just walk in. Hasta sighed and said, have you been ready for a long time? Keys answered honestly, well, I have been preparing for a long time. You lied when you were in Backland. Yes, no one dares to say that what they say in this life is the truth. What if I don't go in today? Then we will wait for your next arrival. You guys are so patient. Hasta looked up at the dark castle. Under the setting sun, it looked particularly mysterious and manor-like. Lead the way. Please come this way. Keys was not surprised by Hasta's decision. Keys was in the front, Hasta was holding Ashera in the middle, and behind him were the maid, gardener, coachman, and cook. The 6 people were quiet along the way. Hasta did not speak, and Keys and others also remained silent. When Hasta stopped to admire the surrounding buildings, they stopped too, without uttering a word of urging. When Keys opened the castle door, all the bright candles lit up in an instant. In this age where oil lamps and gas lamps are used, except for churches, few people use large numbers of candles to light up their houses. In the center of the hall, Hasta saw the housekeeper and Mrs. Lisa that Keys had just mentioned. They were a man and a woman, both elderly people. They were standing on the left and right in front of a golden box held up by a wooden frame. The golden box was forged from a single piece of gold, without any cracks or scratches. At this moment, under the flickering candlelight, it was emitting wisps of golden light. This thing is very familiar to Hasta, something that has been entangled with him since his birth. Wherever your home is, it will appear. In total, it has followed me and moved twice. The first time he followed him from the West District to Queens, and now he followed him from Backland to this castle. Even though I didn't bring it with me, it still came uninvited. There was a trace of ridicule on the corner of Hasta's mouth. Is this the surprise you have prepared for me? Keys said with a pious expression, this is your gift of destiny. It has been waiting for you to open it yourself. You want to know what's hidden inside. Yes, we have been chasing an answer. Why don't you open it yourselves? We can't do it. What if I don't want to open it now? Then we'll wait until you want to open it. Hasta said nothing more and looked at the golden box. It is not big, about 30 centimeters long, and about 5 centimeters wide and high. It didn't exude any different aura around it, just like a dead thing without a soul. Hasta stared at it for a while, and finally chuckled, I'm a little tired today. We have prepared a room for you, please come this way. Keys did not worry about whether to open the golden box or not, and still led the way, taking Hasta to his room. In the hall, candlelight was dim, and the golden box on the wooden shelf was still waiting quietly, waiting for someone to open it. In the room on the second floor, Hasta asked Keys to go down first, close the door, put down a Shara in his arms, and placed a mirror on the table. Then he began to look at this room, which was even more spacious and luxurious than Greco's villa room. On the collection shelf, there are all kinds of collectibles, and any piece you pick out has a history of hundreds of years. The style of the chandelier in the room is slightly old, and it is also lit with candles. This is a special candle that burns for a long time and does not need to be replaced all the time. When I came to the window and opened it, the scenery outside was very good. Various plantations were dotted on the flat land, extending to the end of the sky. In addition, you can also see the town you just passed through from here, but it is just a small black spot in the field of vision, and you need a telescope to see it clearly. After admiring it for a while, Hasta came to the special big bed. A large bed about 3 meters wide and 5 meters long. Not to mention that people can roll around on it, even if they are jumping on the bed, there is enough space. It's such a nice place, what a shame. Hasta lay on his back on the bed, put away his smile, and began to think about how to solve the problem. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. From the reactions of Keys and others just now, they respected him very much, although this respect did not necessarily come directly from himself, but might be a symbolic meaning of his existence. He had thought about his relationship with the Yellow King a long time ago, and there were only 2 possibilities. The first possibility was that he was a special existence arranged by the Yellow King, and he wanted to be resurrected from him, similar to Tianzun and Klein. The second possibility was that he was just a small chess piece in the script written by the Yellow King, and he was observing him from the starry sky. But these possibilities, in front of the Hall of Stars, had some unknown changes. The power of the stars suppressed the arrangement left by the Yellow King on him, so he still maintained a clear mind, instead of becoming a substitute for others and falling directly into a box. Hasta had thought about these speculations many times, but he had never been able to confirm them. For the current situation, it was a bit too far away. Hasta just thought about it and began to think about a more realistic solution. A direct fight would definitely not work. Together with Sharon, he could barely deal with a Sequence 4 demigod, but the housekeeper and Lady Lisa just now were hard to tell. But their status was definitely above Keys. According to the principle of respecting basic strength in the extraordinary world, those 2 people were at least Sequence 4. Plus Keys and the other 5, the combat power was a bit different. The second way was to attract external aid to break the situation, such as the descendant of the evil god. He had not entered the Hall of Stars during this period, and he didn't know how Mr. A was doing. The third way was to let nature take its course. Since he couldn't escape in a short time, he would join them. Maybe he could become a pope with his own uniqueness. From the current situation, the third way was the most suitable. Isn't this their purpose? Letting me open the golden box is to confirm my uniqueness. Usurping the faith left by the Yellow King is also a good counterattack. Hastur slowly thought about the feasibility in his mind, and Ashera lay quietly under Hastur's armpit. When the sun completely set, the door was knocked. Hastur sat up straight on the bed, exhaled lightly, and put on an elegant smile on his face. He stood up and walked to the mirror on the table, as if muttering to himself, "Relax, this is not a big deal, maybe they don't have any ill will towards me." Meow. Ashera jumped over and wanted Hastur to take it with him, but it was still left in the room. The door opened, and Hastur followed Keys outside the door downstairs to prepare for dinner. The dining table on the first floor was a long and flat oval with a total of 11 chairs. Hastur naturally sat at the top position, and knives, forks, spoons and other items were already placed in front of him. Then, the maids began to take turns to serve food. These people were ordinary people, and the maid I met today was not here. Except Keys, no one else showed up. It seems that they are not in a hurry. Hastur enjoyed dinner silently. Although the food here was far less exquisite and delicious than Backland, it tasted good and above the passing line. "It tastes good." Asta gave an evaluation, and Keys, who was standing by, smiled and said, "Your recognition is our greatest honor." After dinner, Keys asked the maids to pack up and leave. He knew that the young noble in front of him had something to ask him. Asta placed his right hand casually on the table, tapped the table with his index finger and said, "Can I still trust you?" I don't know if it was an illusion, but Keys felt that Asta, who was sitting in the first seat at the moment, was like a god, and there was an invisible pressure emanating from him. It made people feel afraid from the bottom of their hearts. Keys collected his thoughts and said respectfully, "We never intended to hurt you with our lies." Asta did not comment on this, and said lightly, "Do you have a pope?" The position of the pope has been vacant, and it is waiting for a suitable person to step up and greet the worship of all believers. If I join you, can I become your pope? We have been following the shadow of the gods, and only those who can listen to the oracle can become the pope. Has the god you believe in ever issued an oracle? No. Then how can you be sure of his existence? Keys was silent for a while, still calmly said, "After we embarked on this extraordinary path, he has been leading us forward." "What do you call him?" This is a very disrespectful question, but Hastur really wants to know the answer to this question. Keys lowered his head, his body trembling slightly, his eyes showing fanatical worship, and he said in a low and hoarse voice, "The Lord of the star sea in the distant starry sky, the nameless one in the chaos and formlessness, he is the planner of destiny, the script he wrote will surely be performed, he is the Yellow King who plays with the world, and the figure he left behind is the direction we will always follow. The Lord of the star sea in the distant starry sky, the nameless one in the chaos and formlessness, the planner of destiny." Asta silently recited these three honorific names several times in his heart, trying to find out the special place of the Yellow King. But there was not much gain. The Lord of the Star Sea and the Nameless One, these two honorific titles, Asta already knew them all. What he cares about more is the honorific title of Destiny Planner. Will once said that the Yellow Monks know how to deal with 008. From this sentence, it can be seen that the authority of the King in Yellow involves two paths, destiny and audience. Well, to be precise, it is a combination of two extraordinary paths. Hastur glanced at the excited Keys, and did not ask him any other questions. A fanatical believer could not provide him with a correct answer. At 10 o'clock in the evening, Hastur was already lying on the big bed. No one would disturb him. His power here is indeed equivalent to that of a lord, and he can do whatever he wants. If it weren't for the golden box still lying in the middle of the hall on the first floor, reminding him all the time that this place is closely related to the Yellow Monks, he didn't feel anything wrong. Keys and others did not deliberately avoid him when doing things and talking, and always maintained respect for him. When he set a few rules in the room to avoid being peeped, he fell asleep and went to the Hall of Stars. Hall of Stars. Hastur looked across the stars, but still couldn't find the star where the Yellow King was. He had no choice but to look back at the star of the real creator and find the light spot of Mr. A. In the light spot picture, Mr. A had moved to a new place and was kneeling in front of the statue, praying non-stop. Hastur directly performed divine revelation and entered his dream to learn about all of Mr. A's experiences during this period. After seeing that Mr. A had completed the task perfectly, he thought about it and decided to give Mr. A good performance evaluation, just as an encouragement for his hard work. When Mr. A came to the familiar sea again, Opposite the holy mountain in the dream, he knew that the Lord's eyes were on him again. He crawled on the sea to welcome the Lord's gaze. "You are very good." The oracle drilled into his ears like a magic sound, and set off a huge wave in his mind. The dream was broken, and Mr. A was still crawling on the ground, his shoulders shrugged slightly, and his whole body trembled constantly. "Very good. You're very good. This is the recognition from the Lord." Mr. A was so excited that he could not express it in words. He could feel that his violently beating heart was about to fly out of his heart. He used all his strength to control the expression on his face that wanted to twitch and wriggle. In the end, he suppressed the smile that wanted to laugh, leaving only a smile hanging on the corner of his slightly raised mouth. He had never heard of other believers who had been rewarded by the Lord. I am afraid that even Lord Ouroboros would find it difficult to be praised by the Lord, right? The dark world in the basement that had been completely sealed by the boulder suddenly brightened up. It was a starry sky suspended on the top of the coffin. The starry sky was bright and dazzling, dispelling the dark and lightless world. 4 starlight chains like tentacles stretched out from the depths of the starry sky and tightly wrapped around the 4 corners of the coffin that carried the power of the evil god's offspring. With the baptism of the power of the stars, the breath of the stars here gradually became stronger, constantly eliminating and purifying other powers. The originally dark coffin gradually faded from black to translucent. When the starlight above the head dissipated and left, everything returned to calm. In the Hall of Stars, Hasta held his forehead with one hand. His spiritual power was almost exhausted, and he was in severe pain. "It will take another 2 nights for me to completely transform the offspring of the evil god into a believer of the stars, but the consciousness that was originally to be born seemed to have been cleared out during the purification process just now." Hasta carefully recalled all the details that had just happened. He took advantage of Mr. A to reach the basement and baptize with the power of the Hall of Stars. Purify the consciousness that may belong to the real creator in that body, leaving only pure energy in that body. In the process, because the newly born consciousness was more inclined to the real creator, it was wiped out by the baptism of the stars. This is not bad, leaving only an empty shell without any consciousness, just like the container for the goddess of night to descend. That body is the container for the stars to descend. Hasta thought for a while and felt that it was indeed feasible, so he left the Hall of Stars and lay on the bed to sleep. For the next 2 days, Hasta pretended nothing had happened and continued to stay in the castle as his lord. On the 2nd day of his arrival, he rode a horse and took a long walk around the area, and had a general understanding of the terrain around the castle. On the 3rd day, he expanded his travel boundaries and rode around various plantations in the outer area, with the town called Wolf as the node. Regarding his actions, Keys and others still said nothing, but silently met all his requests. Among them, Keys also asked someone to bring a very detailed map, which was specific to villages in various places, including his entire territory and the territories of several nearby nobles. He was even very considerate to mark a few lines of introduction information in some more distinctive villages and towns. For example, the village of Quarf, which is 60 miles away from here, is mainly rich in textile raw materials, supplemented by animal husbandry. The city of Dahl, 200 miles west of the city of Spelling, is mainly engaged in agricultural production, and also has some iron and coal resources. This kind of key information is recorded in detail on the map. Even some secret and remote paths are recorded. It is simply a strategic map for marching and fighting. For this, Hasta had to admire Keys's dedication to this task. On the 3rd night, more than 11 o'clock, in the Hall of Stars, Hasta finally used the power of the Hall of Stars to completely transform the body hidden in the coffin into a container for the stars to descend. He had no consciousness, and the divinity in his body had been completely activated after being baptized and stimulated by the power of the stars. Even before entering the body, Hasta could feel the vigorous power. When he tried to use the chain of order to touch his consciousness to the body, he entered it smoothly and merged perfectly. The body was just like his body, and he only needed to move his mind slightly to make corresponding movements. This is more real and operable than the puppets in the puppet show. But Hasta's spiritual power was almost exhausted tonight, and his head was dizzy and heavy, so he didn't make too many attempts. When he dispersed the power of the Hall of Stars, the descending container turned into a new point of light, independent of the stars of the real creator. Does this mean that this body has completely gotten rid of the influence of the real creator? Hasta stared at it carefully for a while, and then paid attention to the reaction of the real creator. Well, there was no reaction, as silent as ever. He glanced at Adam again, and he did not make any extra movements. It seems that he does not know about O8's loss in Ince Zangwill for the time being. Maybe Ince Zangwill is still alive now, so he did not pay too much attention to him. Hasta scanned the stars as usual, confirmed that there was nothing abnormal, and left the Hall of Stars. Backland, deep in the alley near St. Samuel Church, in the house where the container of stars is hidden. Mr. A was listening to the new situation reported by his subordinates in panic. Although he closed the door of the basement and blocked it with boulders, he still sent 2 people to guard outside to prevent anyone from breaking in. Tonight, just now, they came to report in a panic, saying that they heard the sound of slapping coffins in the basement. Why panic? This is the normal sound of the Lord's offspring being born. After a while, he will come in a complete state. Mr. A scolded the 2 subordinates in front of him with a sullen face. How stupid! 2 days ago, the Lord gave him the highest praise through the oracle, which proved that his actions greatly pleased the Lord. It is normal to have abnormalities now, which is a sign that the Lord's consciousness is about to revive in that body. What Lord's offspring? That's the Lord's vessel for his advent. But this kind of information that is too secretive, he will naturally not easily reveal it to irrelevant personnel. You continue to guard there well. Once the Lord's offspring is born, I will naturally give you the reward you want. You should know my generosity. Yes. The 2 subordinates turned around and left happily. Oh, you are so happy just for a little reward, for me. No reward can compare to a word of affirmation from the Lord. Mr. A's mouth corners unconsciously rose again. He has been thinking of the words that the Lord praised him recently. He never gets tired of listening to it. The more he listens, the more pious he becomes. St. Samuel's Church. Archbishop Anthony Stephen is bowing devoutly to the statue of the goddess of night in front of him. The painted glass windows on the dome welcome the light of the crimson moon. The candles made of moon flowers and crimson sandalwood, which are lit all year round, exude the fragrance that pleases the goddess. The calm and distant breath, like the Mother of Heaven embracing everything. Archbishop Anthony Stephen slowly stood up, with a little puzzlement on his face. Tonight, he prayed to the goddess as usual, and felt that there seemed to be some uncoordinated breath around him, but he could not accurately capture the source of that breath. He could only vaguely perceive that the breath was very close to here. Is there something unclean near the church? Anthony Stephen thought for a long time and thought that this was the most likely scenario, and it was also a reminder from the goddess tonight. Now that the goddess's attention was attracted by other things, maybe some bold cultists really wanted to take the opportunity to cause some trouble. After pondering for a while, he asked people to summon the clergy in the church and sent a red-gloved team to conduct a large-scale search of all areas near the church. Every corner will be checked. No dirty things are allowed to approach the goddess's temple. Leonard has always been very lucky. This time, his team received the task from Archbishop Anthony and cooperated with the clergy of the church to start a large-scale cleansing of the area near St. Samuel Church. He heard from his older teammates that every time Archbishop Anthony noticed something lurking nearby and couldn't find it accurately, he would start a large-scale purification operation. Leonard was very curious. This is St. Samuel Church. Apart from the quiet church, this is the place where the Church of the Goddess of Night has the strongest defense. Even the eyes of the goddess may always be watching here. Are there really cultists who dare to offend here? The task of this purification operation was issued late last night. Early in the morning, Leonard followed his teammates and began to search the nearby buildings one by one, and even the residents living here had to be checked one by one. Once a strange face appears, it is the focus of observation. Even many police officers from the police station came to verify the true identity of each person accurately. After working for half a day in the morning, there was no gain. But in the afternoon, 2 unfamiliar faces were caught, and then following this clue, they gradually locked onto a house hidden deep in the alley. Such a large-scale search was also noticed by the other party, who began to hide in the house and no longer went out. Damn it! How could the people of the Church of the Night react so quickly? Mr. A, who sensed something was wrong, had a dark face and a cold light in his eyes. Under this situation, it is impossible to move the coffin from the basement to another safe place. The only way is to attract all the attention of the Church of the Night and make them think that everyone in this house has left. Only in this way can the secret hidden in the basement be preserved. In order to implement this plan, Mr. A personally came to the gate of the basement and ordered his subordinates to quickly fill up the passage outside the entire basement, change the original layout of the room, and place large objects such as beds and cabinets at the upper entrance of the basement. After doing all this, he carefully checked every detail and made sure that no one would see the flaws before he began to implement his real plan. He tied another ordinary coffin to the carriage, then lay in the coffin himself, put some sundries in it as a disguise, and finally asked several men to create chaos. After everything was ready, several houses near this house suddenly caught fire on a large scale. The fire was very fierce and made a lot of noise. In this chaos, a carriage carrying sundries quietly left from the back door of the house. Obviously, such a trick could not completely deceive the Red Gloves team, who had long been eyeing this house. When chaos happened in other places, they still stayed here and asked other clergy to participate in the rescue. Sure enough, they caught a carriage that wanted to leave in the chaos. They were sure that the carriage must be carrying something evil and filthy. So when the carriage was about to leave, they followed it and prepared to take down the other side's foothold as well. The carriage circled around the streets of the North District until night fell and then went straight to the densely populated East District. No, they have discovered that we are following them in secret and deliberately go to crowded places. Don't worry, we are fully prepared. When the carriage passed a corner in the East District, it was sent to the spirit world by a seal that had been set up long ago. Leonard also followed into the spirit world. The battle was completely one-sided. The well-prepared members of the Red Gloves team cooperated with the two bishops of the church to crush everyone. When the coffin hidden in the carriage was discovered, Leonard and others were shocked and cautious. After the previous fight, they have confirmed that these people are members of the Aurora Society. Judging from their crazy past, it is very likely that there is a pile of explosives hidden in the coffin. In other places, there have been crazy deeds of Aurora members using a carriage carrying a pile of explosives to rush into the church and finally detonate and destroy the church. So you must be very alert to deal with this group of lunatics, so as not to be led into the abyss of death by them. St. Samuel's Church. Archbishop Anthony was expecting the Red Gloves to bring him back the news of victory. At this moment, the goddess statue in front of him began to shake slightly for no reason. Not only that, hundreds of stained glass windows on the dome suddenly shattered, and the light projected by the crimson moon was much brighter than before. What happened? Archbishop Anthony's heart was beating uneasy, his face was as gloomy as water, and he looked up at the starry sky. The sky was bright, and it seemed that there was not only the light of the crimson moon, but also stars, which were also emitting brighter and more dazzling light than before. Something must have happened. Archbishop Anthony immediately retracted his gaze, apologized to the shaking goddess statue, and then followed the broken glass passage of the dome to the top of the church. He searched around with a cold gaze and finally found the source of the abnormality tonight. In an insignificant house, the soil and rocks on the ground began to roll, and bright but not dazzling light was constantly gathering. The light of the stars in the sky seemed to be particularly fond of it, and they were constantly casting their gazes. At this moment, Archbishop Anthony understood that what the Red Gloves team was chasing tonight was just an illusion, and the heretics who were really hiding near the church were only beginning to show up now. Any heretic who disturbs the goddess's peace will be buried by the night. Archbishop Anthony shook his body and came to the place where the light gathered. Just as he was about to make a move, the soil and rocks below him completely cracked, and the light gradually disappeared. In front of him appeared a young man, who was about 25 years old, with black hair and a handsome face, especially his eyes, which were as deep as the starry sky above his head. The man stood at the bottom of the deep pit, in the middle of the ruins of the collapsed house, looking up at the starry sky. Well, he was still naked at this moment, without any clothes on. But such a scene was not as blasphemous as imagined, but rather had a kind of holiness. It was like an ignorant angel descending to the world, naked. But he quickly abandoned this idea. He could clearly feel the increasingly strong stench of the real creator from the other party. This is blasphemy. Archbishop Anthony suppressed the strangeness in his heart and defined all this as blasphemy. Being naked is the greatest offense to the goddess. Sleep. Destroy. Die in the night. Under Archbishop Anthony's soft chanting, the surrounding darkness surged silently, as if it had intelligence, stretching out black tentacles, and at the same time turning the place where the young man was into absolute darkness. But it didn't work. The young man was surrounded by bright stars, and in just a moment, he dispelled the illusion of the night. His left arm stretched out a chain that seemed to be forged by starlight, spreading and growing, and waving it a few times at a high speed, smashing all the black tentacles that dared to offend. In Archbishop Anthony's nervous and depressed mood, the young man's eyes finally fell on him, but after a brief glance, he fell on St. Samuel's Church. His mouth opened slightly, as if he uttered the word, night. Unreasonable fear began to spread in Archbishop Anthony's heart. What kind of heresy is this? How dare he blaspheme the goddess like this? Blaspheming heretic, only death can cleanse your sin of blaspheming the goddess. Archbishop Anthony's mouth moved up and down, and the natural spirits and ghosts sealed on his teeth turned into a group of black tides and swept away with his open mouth. The spirits of the mountains, the spirits of the rivers, the spirits of the trees, the ghosts of fear, the resentful shadows of death. This is a special existence that he has encountered and sealed in his life. For this reason, he has set foot in the dangerous areas of the spirit world many times. Most of the sky turned into a black tide and rushed straight to the young man below. Imprison. The young man uttered a word, and the natural spirits and ghosts in the sky were imprisoned. All parts of their bodies were entangled with transparent chains and could not move. He just glanced at them, and the imprisoned natural spirits and ghosts were completely annihilated. It rained in the sky, a black and sticky rain. When the black rain was pouring, the young man opened a portal to the spiritual world and left here at a high speed. Archbishop Anthony, whose hands and feet were slightly cold, did not hesitate to enter the spiritual world as well, not to let the evil heretic escape the punishment of the goddess. But what he didn't understand was why the goddess's eyes had never been cast over. Moreover, he actually felt a familiar breath on the evil heretic just now, which was the breath of the night. At the same time, he also vaguely felt that there seemed to be a secret smell on the heretic. What a blasphemy and treason! Mr. A felt that he was going to die. Originally, he thought that with the diversity of his shepherd's methods, he could leave calmly even if he was surrounded. But he still overestimated himself and underestimated his opponent. They came prepared, but he was careless. Bang! His shoulder was smashed again, and his flesh and blood began to wriggle and heal, but the recovery speed was too slow. Before he could recover, half of his body and his shoulder were smashed. If it weren't for the extraordinary ability of the Rose Bishop, he would have been a pool of flesh on the ground, paralyzed and unable to move. Who? He panted rapidly, and his exposed heart began to beat in response to the rhythm of his breathing. Lord, merciful Lord, your faithful believers, please go to your kingdom of God and continue to serve you. Mr. A shouted loudly, then vomited out a large pool of blood, and fell into a pool of blood. Near the end of his life, he seemed to see the Lord obeying his call and sending an earthly angel to save him. Is it the Lord who sent Lord Aurelius? Mr. A opened his eyes wide to see clearly, but in the end he couldn't see anything clearly. Leave quickly. A reminder suddenly appeared in Leonard's mind. He quickly stepped back and called the members of his team to leave together. But before they left the spirit world, a young figure came to Mr. A. He raised his hand slightly, and all the attacks on Mr. A collapsed. He stretched out a finger and pointed at Mr. A, and the flesh and blood belonging to Mr. A began to flow back and gather around him. In just a few breaths, Mr. A had recovered as before, without even a scratch on his face. Get out of here quickly. After being reminded, Leonard once again called on his teammates to leave and not to stay and seek death. His shout attracted a glance, just the first glance into his eyes. Leonard felt that his heart had stopped beating, his whole body was stiff, and he was trembling and unable to speak a word. So did his teammates, including the two bishops of St. Samuel's Church, who were also trembling. This is absolute personal suppression. Even if the opponent has not yet activated the mythical creature form, just one look can completely make them lose their combat effectiveness. Fortunately, this mysterious young man didn't stay long. He grabbed Mr. A's shoulders and left, disappearing. When Leonard and others looked at each other in confusion and didn't know what to do, Archbishop Anthony also arrived. After listening to the report, Archbishop Anthony sighed and said, "Go back first." He had no intention of continuing to chase them. The speed gap between them was too big for him to catch up. Even if he catches up, can he defeat the opponent? In response, he could only smile bitterly. Leonard breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that he had escaped another disaster this time. Following everyone back to St. Samuel's church. Leonard looked at the broken stained glass on the dome. Leonard was shocked. Was the goddess even disturbed? After a brief question, Archbishop Anthony asked them to go back and rest. After returning to his room, Leonard couldn't wait to ask, old man, do you know what happened tonight? The son of the evil god of the Aurora Society was born. Quote? Leonard's eyes widened and he almost jumped out of bed. He tried hard to suppress the shock in his heart and quickly asked for relevant details. Do you remember the last time you dealt with Lanerwis? The divinity in his body was taken away. Remember, the person who took action was Mr. A tonight. Leonard also wanted to understand all this. Mr. A volunteered to be bait tonight just to buy time for the birth of the evil god's heir. Old man, didn't you say that if a powerful extraordinary person took action in Backland, it would be possible for the gods to descend? Leonard asked another key question. If the descendant of the evil god was really born in the alley not far from St. Samuel's church and alarmed the goddess, why didn't it trigger a divine descent? The coming of gods takes time and preparation. Do you really think they can come if they want to? But why was it so close and not discovered until tonight? Maybe the goddess of the night is not looking at Backland now. Old man, are you not sure? Nonsense, that is a true god, and she is also the goddess of the night who is good at hiding. Hearing the obviously furious voice of the old man, Leonard's nervous mood tonight finally relaxed. He turned over on the bed, lying on his back, and whispered, Old man, what level is his strength? I feel he is much scarier than Archbishop Anthony. In order to avoid triggering a divine descent, he tried his best to suppress his aura and strength. It is very likely that he is Sequence 2. Sequence 2. Are the children of the evil god so scary once they are born? Quote. Leonard didn't wait for the old man's answer, and it was obvious that the old man didn't understand the question. Am I dead? I should be dead. I hope my soul can go to the kingdom of God and continue to serve the Lord. Mr. A only felt that he was in a dark and lightless world. This world is too desolate and too cold. This is a world without the Lord. Lord, why are you unwilling to lead your most devout believers to the kingdom of God to serve you? Mr. A shouted loudly in this black world, but after shouting several times, he felt something was wrong. Then, he opened his eyes. It turned out that the dark world just now was because he closed his eyes. The longed-for kingdom of God did not come, although it was still at the seaside. Mr. A got up from a flat reef under him and began to look around. When he saw a familiar figure not far ahead, he knelt down again. Great Lord, the loving Father of all living beings, the devout believers will always be grateful for your salvation tonight. The figure did not speak. Mr. A raised his head slightly and secretly glanced at it with his peripheral vision. He was very familiar with this figure. He personally used his former subordinate as a vessel to contain divinity and put him in the coffin. Now the Lord's divinity has fully revived and descended here, saving him when his life was about to end. What a gift and honor. Thinking of this, Mr. A's body trembled slightly, and the joy from the bottom of his heart was more useful to him than all the wealth and power in the world. Prepare a coffin in secret and find a suitable hiding place for this body. The sudden voice shocked Mr. A. After a moment of stunned, he hurriedly said, there is another base of ours in the dock area of Backland, which can be used as a temporary foothold. This is South Wales. Mr. A fell into a brief stagnation again, looking at the sky that was still the crimson moon. Did he sleep for a long time? This is a secret mission that only you can know. Yes. Mr. A shuddered all over, and his heart was full of vigorous fighting spirit. This is a task that only I can handle. Come back here before dawn. Mr. A knelt on the ground and respectfully took the task away. On the reef by the sea, Hasta was still familiarizing himself with his new container. The fusion tonight was very successful, but he could not fully exert the strength of this body. It was like in a martial arts novel. A young man got a chance to get a great enlightenment from a master, but he only had a strong inner strength, but he could not use it skillfully. Through the brief fight with Archbishop Anthony tonight, he almost understood the level of strength of this body. Sequence 2 to Sequence 3, if you can fully exert it, you will be a real Earth Angel. And it is an Earth Angel who masters multiple paths and is good at fighting. Asta has never fought with all his strength. He has too many secrets. When he attacks, he tries to use only the extraordinary abilities of the war emblem and his own extraordinary path. unable to exert the power that truly belongs to the stars. For example, the chain of order named by him has not really shown its powerful side in the battle. There are also multiple extraordinary paths to cooperate, which is more terrifying than the shepherd. This star container itself contains the extraordinary path of the real creator, plus the 4 extraordinary paths that he has already involved: the Black Emperor path, the Judgment path, the Destiny path, and the Night path. 5 extraordinary paths can be manipulated at the same time. With such innate conditions, the combat power that can be exerted is absolutely terrible. Most importantly, Hasta does not need to worry about exposing his identity and can exert his strength without reservation. No one will associate this body with a young earl named Hasta Campbell. It's still a while before dawn, and I can do something else. Hasta closed his eyes and thought for a while, then opened the portal to the spirit world. This time, he did not rush on the road, but slowly traveled through the spirit world. This is a very magical place, even the original book does not describe it in detail. He also saw the 7 pure lights at the top of the spirit world, and Mr. Fool's source castle was above the gray fog above the 7 pure lights. Do you want to visit? I guess Mr. Fool is still asleep now, and it is difficult for me to pass through the gray fog now. Forget it, let's not scare Mr. Fool, just let him sleep peacefully. Hasta retracted his gaze from the 7 pure lights and began to focus on the spiritual world in front of him. The desolate and dilapidated scene was like a scene after a war that swept the entire spiritual world. Some timid spiritual creatures were intimidated by the aura emanating from Hasta, and some were attracted. These spiritual creatures are pure spirits, with various shapes, not limited to human and animal shapes. They may be a white ribbon or a twisted ball. Mysterious and strange. Follow the guidance of fate, the area where Twinkle is. Hasta whispered, his eyes were full of twisted and profound patterns, and when his eyes that peeked at fate swept over the place where Twinkle was completely revealed. Hasta moved very fast in that direction. In the spiritual world, there was no need to consider the basic physical law of gravity, and the speed was amazing. It didn't take long for Hasta to arrive in front of Twinkle. This was a translucent woman, almost as tall as the castle, wearing a complicated, gorgeous, dark and gloomy black dress. She had no head, and there was a neat cut on her neck. Her drooping hands held 4 identical heads with blonde hair, red eyes and bright appearance. This was her mythical creature form, an ancient evil creature. Twinkle, Sharon's teacher, was also her closest person. This was also Hasta's New Year's gift to Sharon. At first, Hasta wanted to summon Twinkle by summoning a messenger so that Sharon could see her teacher. Now there was still a little time before dawn, so he came here to take a look. Facing Hasta's arrival, Twinkle, who was holding 4 heads, did not run away, but looked at Hasta curiously. Her eyes were a little dull, and she looked silly, with an inexplicable sense of joy. Her injuries had not yet fully recovered, so she was in this state. Hasta just looked at her for a while and didn't disturb her. He began to look for the next target, Nast, the king of the 5 seas. When Hasta left, the giant doll as big as a castle, with 4 heads and 4 pairs of eyes, stared straight at the direction Hasta left, with a hint of doubt in his eyes. On the sea, on the Black Emperor, Nast did not rest but stood at the bow, looking at the direction of the South Continent. Although he also wanted to go to the South Continent to fish in troubled waters and grab some benefits, he didn't want to meet the other party because the uncrowned king had been wandering around there. He didn't want to be the second pirate king to be conquered. Captain, we found the shadow of the dawn, it is heading in our direction. The lookout responsible for observing the flank ran to report the latest situation. Stop sailing and wait for the dawn to approach. Nast had already expected the arrival of the dawn. At present, the sea was turned upside down by the uncrowned king and it was in a mess. If there were no people from the Loan Navy and the Church of Storms to attract his attention, Nast would never come here to wait for an opportunity but would hide directly to avoid encountering the uncrowned king. Among the 4 pirate kings, only he and the mysterious Queen Bernadette have not been harmed, and it is only a matter of time before they join forces. Before, he also wanted to find Bernadette to join forces, but Bernadette's whereabouts were a mystery. It was said that she was on the southern continent, which made him unable to do so. The dawn gradually approached the Black Emperor. The 2 flagships, which were famous in the sea, successfully met at night before the sun rose. But Bernadette had not appeared in front of Nast. Suddenly, a spiritual portal appeared in front of him, and then a black-haired young man walked out of it. Nast subconsciously regarded the other party as the uncrowned king, but after careful observation and sensing, he realized that the young man in front of him was not the uncrowned king. The black-haired young man wore a white priest robe that didn't fit him very well, barefoot, and didn't wear anything extra on his hands. His eyes were also clean, without a trace of impurities. Are all young people nowadays so scary? Nast's heart skipped a beat. Before, a young man became the uncrowned king who disturbed the sea, and now another young man appeared in front of him out of thin air. Just from the slight breath emanating from him, Nast knew that the other party must be a terrible, extraordinary person. It seems that I am in the right place tonight. The young man turned around, with his back to Nast, and looked at the approaching dawn. The mysterious Queen Bernadette appeared at the bow. The crew members on the Dawn and the Black Emperor all leaned out to see what happened tonight. But in the end, under the scolding of Nast and Bernadette, they all returned to the cabin to wait. Bernadette did not choose to go to the Black Emperor. She could not see through the black-haired young man, nor had she seen the uncrowned king with her own eyes. The same young man appeared on the Black Emperor again, which seemed to have proved his identity. The crimson moon has slipped from the sky, and the scattered starlight is faint. At the junction of the sea and the sky in the distance, a new light is brewing. Nast, who has been observing the young man, has a gloomy face and tries to speak in a calm tone. Meeting people of unknown origin on the sea is often the most frightening. If you come with good intentions, we can sit down and drink and chat. It's almost dawn. An incomprehensible word made Nast not know what to answer for a while, so he could only remain silent and wait for the other party's next move. You were lucky tonight. Asta originally planned to take advantage of the last bit of time to find Nast to test the true strength of his body. But Bernadette also appeared here, so he didn't want to do it. The power of the stars will make Bernadette suspicious, and now is not the time to confront her. Quote? Nast had a question mark on his forehead, and he didn't understand the other party's intention tonight at all. But before he could ask anything else, the aura of the young man standing in front of him shook, and the entire Black Emperor sank a few points. When his breath was restrained again, the entire Black Emperor bounced back. With this retraction and release, the entire Black Emperor began to shake upside down. Nast tried to suppress the shaking of the Black Emperor, but it was very difficult. He couldn't help but have a competitive mentality, but the other party had already opened the spiritual world channel and disappeared. Bernadette on the Dawn also understood at this moment that the black-haired young man just now was not the uncrowned king. It was probably some old guy who came out to pretend to be young. Bernadette thought of the Pope of the Eternal Sun Church who she met before, who also looked very young. I thought you had another guest tonight. He arrived just a few seconds earlier than you. What a coincidence. Nast sighed and said, there are more and more mysterious people recently. This sea is no longer our era. Bernadette chuckled and rejected his view, you are indeed old, and I am young. Nast straightened his back and said boldly, even if I get old, I am still the king of this sea. A new generation replaces the old. This is the change of the times and the law. Gold rushes in the waves, and the young people who stay in the end are not necessarily young people. Nast was full of confidence and heroic spirit, which attracted cheers from his crew. On the coast, or on the awakened reef. Mr. A, who had returned, waited for the sun to rise from the end of the sea, and the incarnation of the Lord returned. You are very good. The same tone of approval made Mr. A lower his head. He didn't want the Lord to see his uncontrollable slightly raised mouth corners. He humbly opened the lid of the coffin and said respectfully, every devout believer is willing to dedicate everything to the Lord. Have you never thought that you are the special one? A light and floating word made Mr. A's mind float and a little floating. When the Lord's figure sank into the coffin, Mr. A closed the lid of the coffin and drove the carriage he got from nowhere to a small town by the sea. He had explored everything in this town and successfully found a suitable place. A place suitable for the Lord to live in must naturally be a remote and quiet place, and no one is allowed to disturb the Lord's sleep. When he arrived at the habitat, Hasta put an early warning on the coffin and ended this divine descent. In the Hall of Stars, Hasta covered his head with obvious pain, took another look at the star where the real creator was, and then returned to the real world. The sun had spread from the window. Ashera got up early and went out for a walk. When he came back, he saw that his master was still sleeping. He went out for a walk again. When he came back near noon, the person in the bed was still sleeping. Meow. Ashera came to the mirror and asked in confusion. In the mirror, Sharon showed up, looking at Hasta who was still sleeping on the bed, and couldn't help falling into deep thought. Through this period of time with Hasta, she knew that Hasta was a person with a very regular life, and generally would not sleep for such a long time. The spiritual power was too seriously depleted, resulting in the need to recover through sleep. This is Sharon's judgment on Hasta's state. But Hasta slept in bed all night, and didn't even get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. Why would he consume spiritual power? Another unknown secret. During this period, Keys knocked on the door once, and seeing that Hasta ignored him, he didn't show up again. At about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Hasta woken up from his deep sleep. Sat up straight, shook his head, very energetic and awake. Meow. Ashera pounced over, and Sharon also showed up in the mirror. It's okay. I'll be more careful next time. Hasta thought about what happened last night and felt that he should not stay in the state of descent for more than 3 hours in the future, otherwise he would definitely not be able to wake up the next day, which would easily cause others to speculate. Be careful, Sharon reminded him, and after thinking for a while, he said, don't be impatient. Things need to be handled slowly. Well, I know what to do. Hasta replied with a smile, and then said, do you remember the New Year's gift I promised to give you? Sharon looked over, her face calm, and she didn't say anything. When things are settled here, I will give you the New Year's gift. Okay, Ashera should get up, I should go wash up and eat, and you should lose weight. Meow. At dinner time, Keys met Hasta, and there was no abnormal behavior, nor did he ask Hasta why he didn't get up on time for breakfast this morning. He just took a bunch of handwritten information and said, during this period, we will make a statistics of all the plantations in your territory, including idle land and a large amount of land that can be reclaimed and utilized. What a serious and efficient way of handling it. Hasta was very satisfied with Keys's responsible attitude. Even without his reminder, he knew what to prepare. Well done, put the information in my room later, I want to know the details. Keys asked someone to take away the pile of information, and then took out a map, pointing to the silver lines drawn on it and said, this place is remote, and you need several suitable commercial channels, which can sell the resources in your territory to farther places, and it is more suitable for business. Keys told the story seriously. Hasta glanced at the map, his eyelids twitched slightly. These routes are not as simple as business routes, they are clearly war routes. Among these routes, 3 routes are like a trident nailing 3 important port towns on the seaside. As long as the 3 port towns are taken, it is equivalent to taking control of the sea power of the southwest coastline of Southwell County. There are also 4 routes leading inland, one of which ends at Carlisle, where the Grand Duke of Southwell is located, one leads to the inland military town, one is a transportation hub, and one leads to a city rich in iron ore and other resources. Hasta doesn't believe that Keys doesn't know these situations, he must have made relevant preparations in advance. You are really suitable to be my butler, Hasta gave his praise without hesitation. Keys showed a happy expression on his face, stood up and said, it would be my honor to be your butler. Where is the original butler? He has a lot of things to do and can't stay here for a long time. Madame Lisa has also left. Hasta smiled and nodded, then from today on, you are the butler of this castle. Keys took a step back, bowed and saluted, I will be driven by your wishes. He was really happy and excited, and he was not pretending. Hasta still has some vision. Keys seems to be loyal to him wholeheartedly. So the position of a butler can make him so happy. Are there different factions among the Yellow Monks? Hasta asked this question directly, and Keys did not hide it and told everything he knew. At present, there are 3 different voices in the Yellow Monks, and each voice has its own different propositions. The faction Keys belongs to is recognized and supported by himself, which can be temporarily called the Royalist faction. The old butler was a member of the Advent sect. They believed that they needed to sacrifice themselves alive to the King in Yellow in order for the gods to descend to the world. Their own bodies were the vessels for the King in Yellow to descend to the world. The third voice was a devout believer. They only cared about following the figure of the King in Yellow and becoming the most devout followers. A very classic triangle structure, gentle, radical, and neutral. The reason why it is so calm now is that the right time has not come yet. The Advent sect has been waiting for a suitable time to welcome the King in Yellow. Before that, Even if there was a container, it would not be able to receive the advent of God. Hasta curiously asked when this time would be. Keyes said in a low voice, "I don't know. We have been following the guidance of fate. What is coming will always come. Forget it, it's the same old talk again." Hasta did not comment on this. He only believed half of Keyes' words. The other half could be verified at night. At 11 o'clock in the evening, Hasta specifically told Sharon a few words, and then he lay down on the bed to rest, passed through the Hall of Stars, and descended to the container on the outskirts of the seaside town. The coffin was still lying quietly in the basement. Hasta asked Mr. A to seal the door of the basement and made a rule prohibiting passage. Even Mr. A could not enter the basement at will, and could only stay outside. It would be fine if the gods descended once, but Mr. A could not know that their master had been visiting every night recently. It would be fine if it happened once or twice, but if it happened too many times, he would definitely be suspicious. So Hasta simply excluded Mr. A from the right to know, so that he had no idea when he would come and when he would leave. When the lid of the coffin was opened silently, Hasta came out of the coffin, opened the spiritual world channel, and went to the secret base of the yellow monks that he had learned from Keyes. Since they are still waiting for the right time of fate, let me tell them that my arrival is fate. South Wales, Canterbury City. The crimson moon shines, and the stars shine like a song. In a secluded suburban manor, a group of believers in yellow clothes are worshipping devoutly around the shore of a lake outside the manor. The figure of God is like a flower in a mirror, like a moon in the water, ethereal and chaotic, and can only be seen through a special medium. In the eyes of the yellow monk, there is nothing more suitable than a lake to carry the passage of the gods. Because there are related records in the classics. Along the shore, cutting through the clouds, the twin suns sink into the lake. The long shadows fall down. There, the wonderful night when the black star rises. The wonderful moon running in the night. The yellow ragged clothes flutter in the wind. The song silently disappears there. When the soul no longer sings. When the tears no longer flow. The Lord of the starry sea in the distant starry sky. O chaotic and invisible indescribable one. He will come in the expectation of thousands of believers. The devout prayers of the believers on the shore became more and more fervent. The chosen people walked naked from the shore to the center of the lake step by step from the shallow water. They will see the shadow of God under the influence of the lake water. When their figures are completely immersed in the lake water, they walk silently to the center of the lake in the water. The believers on the shore kneel on the ground, raise and lower their hands, and keep shouting the name of God in their mouths. Lord of the distant starry sky, the nameless one in the chaos, your devout and humble believers are waiting for your arrival. Lord of the distant starry sky, the nameless one in the chaos, your devout and humble believers are calling for your arrival. The shouts seemed to pass through the lake portal in front of them and reach the distant starry sky, awakening the gods who were still sleeping. When the crimson moon in the sky rose higher and higher, when disappointment enveloped them again, the stars flashed their light, and a dark black star lit up in the depths of the starry sky. The black star rose silently, and only those who could keep looking at the starry sky and remember the position of every star there could discover its existence at the first time. In the garden of the manor, Mrs. Lisa was looking up at the starry sky. The gods they believed in came from the depths of the starry sky, which was something all believers were extremely sure of. Looking up at the starry sky, maybe one day you will be able to face the gaze of the gods above. She has always thought so and has always done so. At 12 o'clock in the night, she looked up at the unchanging starry sky from the dark night of the new and the old. This habit has lasted for a long time. The unchanging starry sky hides too many mysteries and too many hopes. The hope in her heart is already the aging rose petals, withering one by one, and the wick that is close to running out of oil, swaying in the wind with its head down. There are no people who have experienced the same as her, although they also believe in the God, but their hearts are not as pure as her piety. They are calling, and she is looking up. In her opinion, whether the God comes or not has nothing to do with the devout calling of the believers. On the contrary, it is an offensive act that disturbs the sleeping God and a noisy noise. The coming of God depends only on his mood. When he is interested in looking at her again, it is the day when he is about to come to the world. Madame Lisa looked up silently. When she was about to withdraw her gaze, she saw that in the position surrounded by stars, a star that almost merged with the dark starry sky appeared at some point, a black star. Yes, she saw it, with great certainty. She was sure that in the nights of the past years, there had never been a black star in that position. There, the wonderful night when the black star rose. The wonderful moon running in the night. Madame Lisa kept muttering in her mouth, trembling and kneeling down her gradually aging body, and worshipping in the direction of the black star. Her eye-catching behavior attracted other yellow monks in the garden. Some of them followed Madame Lisa to worship devoutly, while others curiously looked at the starry sky in the direction of Madame Lisa's worship. The prophesied day has come. The black star in the prophecy, has appeared in that position. Madame Lisa trembled and stretched out her right index finger to point to the place where the black star appeared. The faces of the yellow-clothed monks present flashed with astonishment, and then became fanatical. They all looked up, but they did not find anything unusual in the starry sky, let alone the predicted black star. Although Mrs. Lisa was very sure, no one except her saw the existence of the black star. Some people even questioned whether she was trying to impress others or making a joke because of her old age and dementia. Mrs. Lisa raised her head and looked at the black star hanging among the stars. The excitement in her heart gradually cooled down. God has cast his gaze, but except for her, no one can see the prophesied black star. This shows that this organization is no longer as pure as it used to be, and it has too many changes and thoughts that it shouldn't have. When a figure walked over, the onlookers gave way to a path. Mrs. Lisa, did you see the black star rising? In the plain words, you can only hear the questioning tone, his suspicion, and his ambition, but you can't hear the piety he should have towards the gods. Cardiff, are your eyes so old that you can't see them? Mrs. Lisa stood up from the ground and returned to her usual calm face. Yes, I am old, but I still believe in your judgment and your guidance. If you said that the black star in the prophecy has appeared, then I believe that it has appeared. Don't you want to see the prophesied black star with your own eyes? I am old and dazzled, and I have long since stopped looking up at the stars. Decaf seemed to be laughing at himself. He also wanted to follow Mrs. Lisa's guidance and see the black star that only existed in prophecies. Unfortunately, he couldn't see it. The starry sky there was too unfamiliar to him. This shows one thing: Mrs. Lisa's guidance has become a thing of the past. She is no longer good enough to guide her forward. The only true path to God is the practice of the vessel descending. He could not wait for the right time in his destiny, but Mrs. Lisa said that she saw a black star, which meant that the right time had arrived. Even if tonight is the wrong time, it has to be the right time. When Advent failed, it was Mrs. Lisa's fault alone, and her voice was no longer heard in the organization. Yes, she can't always be right, even if she was his teacher. And if the Advent is successful, then her own opinion is correct, and her own glory will overshadow hers, and the new generation will be better than the old one. Even though he is old, he is still dozens of years younger than his teacher. Mrs. Lisa was silent for a while and sighed. Dickif, you always have too many thoughts that you shouldn't have. People always have to think, and thinking often gives birth to thoughts of one kind or another. My body begins to grow old. Only through thinking can my brain get rusty later. Stop the crazy thoughts in your heart. God has already cast his gaze upon you, and the day of his arrival is not far away. Durkaf nodded and said with certainty, I also believe that God is about to come, but someone always needs to do this last step. He glanced at the monks in yellow clothes gathered around him, then looked up at the stars, and said in a low voice, It's not that my thoughts are too crazy, but that you are always too naive. Without a suitable descending vessel, even if the gods have cast their gaze upon him, he will not be able to cross the starry sky and descend directly. Even the true gods of the Church of the Seven Gods still need containers to carry them in order to truly realize the miracles descended by the gods. The Lord of the Sea of Stars in the distant starry sky. The place where he lives is so far away that he needs a container that can travel around the world. Mrs. Lisa put away her gentle expression and issued a stern rebuke. God will come in the way God should, without any additional intervention from us. You always have to try something to know whether it's right or wrong. You still have time to turn back now. A smile appeared on Durkaf's mottled and wrinkled face. He looked around at all the monks in yellow and spoke loudly, Let us go together to welcome the coming of God, tonight. Tonight, welcome the coming of God. This sentence has some kind of magical power, which made many monks in yellow voluntarily follow behind Cardiff and form a long queue. Follow me, and I will lead you to welcome God's coming. Cardiff raised his head and shouted again, and the monks in yellow clothes from a distance also gathered and consciously followed the team. The Yellow Monks organization has a total of over 100 members, and currently more than 60% of the members are following Cardiff. Cardiff looked down at Lady Lisa in an almost condescending manner. He didn't need to say anything to show off, as the followers behind him had already spoken out his thoughts for him. You are old. It's time to leave the front position. Now is your own time. Cardiff vaguely remembers that he was also a follower standing behind Mrs. Lisa back then. Now, he has become a flag to be followed by others. He had been waiting for this day for a long, long time. He always wanted to be the first believer to stand before God. Regarding the scene in front of her, Mrs. Lisa did not stop her but remained silent. People will change. If she lived to her age, she would have seen through it all. But when this day really came, she found that she was not as calm as she expected. After all, this is an organization she built from scratch. She was the first to hold the torch high, attracting followers one after another. Can such farce attract the attention of God? Mrs. Lisa looked up at the black star in the sky. It was like an eye, calmly overlooking what was happening here. If possible, let this farce get worse. Lady Lisa stepped aside and allowed Decaf to lead the procession past her. This is a kind of tacit consent and a kind of connivance. After all, the fateful man from Backland still couldn't escape the web woven by countless fates. When Dickraft straightened his back and passed Mrs. Lisa, walked out of the manor, and was about to tear apart the passage to the spiritual world, arrive at the castle at lightning speed, and capture the perfect container, the lake in front of him was as bright as stars. Song. Under the starry sky, in the eyes of all the monks in yellow, in the depths of the lake, the water was divided into two parts by an invisible force, and a figure appeared in the praise of the stars. He was wearing a ragged yellow robe, with bare feet, just standing in the air. The separated lake water on both sides reunited and flowed calmly under his feet. The devout believers who were holding a ceremony by the lake were the first to kneel down to offer their loyalty. The domino effect began to form. When the figure's gaze swept across, the monks in yellow who were still standing fell to their knees one after another. Soon, only Mrs. Lisa and Dickafe were left standing. A devout believer is really not devout at all. There was a trace of sarcasm on Hastur's lips. He came to this manor very early and happened to hear the argument between Mrs. Lisa and Dickafe, so he was not in a hurry to show up. He wanted to see how much piety still existed in the organization of the Yellow Monks, believers. Unfortunately, these believers don't seem to be religious at all. So he deliberately chose this way of appearance, just to see how the so-called followers would face his presence. Decaf was stunned in place for a long time. The mysterious figure who appeared out of thin air on the lake in front of him was very close to the image of God that Mrs. Lisa had originally described. The difference is, the gods mentioned by Mrs. Lisa do not have a specific physical body. Wrapped in the ragged yellow robe, is a chaotic and formless indescribable being, which is closer to the concept of nothingness than the handsome black man in front of him. Send young people. You blasphemer, how dare you blaspheme the gods? Decaf directly characterized the young man in front of him with an unusual appearance as a fake. He brought extraordinary power to his words, which resounded deafeningly in the minds of every monk in yellow. Soon, the monk in yellow who was kneeling in worship raised his head, then stood up straight with fear, his eyes regained his determination and followed Decaf. Hastur did not speak, and just watched calmly. Hastur didn't hate this title. He really didn't like the king in yellow, the old outer god who had too many entanglements with him. It's blasphemous. He really wants to dethrone the king in yellow. Well, starting with the organization of the monks in yellow. Mrs. Lisa on the side, her eyes full of traces of time, stared closely at the figure above the lake. That figure was quite different from the image of a god in her impression. He looked more like a person than a god. But tonight, not long ago, the predicted black star appeared in the sky. Black star appears, and such a young man dressed as the king in yellow appears. Isn't it too much of a coincidence? Is tonight the fateful day? She wasn't sure, so she didn't choose to stand up. Sacrilegious, is that right? Hastur pulled out the yellow robe with his right hand, held it in his hand, looked around at the yellow monks present, and then a ball of flame began to burn from the bottom of the yellow robe, and the blazing flames engulfed the symbol of the king in yellow. Blasphemy, naked blasphemy. The monks in yellow who were still hesitant at first became more determined in their choice. Those who appear here tonight are blasphemers, not gods. Only Mrs. Lisa trembled, and began to believe in her heart that the young man in front of her was the incarnation of God. Because God likes to play with people's hearts, is a planner of fate, and often does things beyond common sense. Never try to understand God from a human perspective. Blasters must die. With a loud shout, a wave soon formed to swallow up the madman who dared to blaspheme God. Dickoff's eyes were full of sarcasm. The God he believed in was still sleeping in the depths of the starry sky, waiting to be awakened by him. This method of pretending to be a descending God should be the work of Keyes's group, in order to legitimately protect the man of destiny. For someone who should have died, it was his greatest luck to live these few more days. Now, fate is going to start asking for the reward it had paid. Blasters must die under the burning of the sky. Dickoff stood up and shouted loudly, and 3 followers stood up behind him. They looked up at the starry sky at the same time, as if they were chanting and calling something. Suddenly, in the calm night sky, a group of fire fell from the sky, as if there was a meteor shower. Asta had witnessed this scene before. On the night when Ince Zangwill was targeted, this unusual fire also appeared in the sky. Now the puzzle has been solved. The people who targeted Ince Zangwill that night were these yellow monks. Asta just stood quietly on the lake, without even raising his hand. When the fire fell like rain, their attack direction was actually Dickoff and others. His eyes had already seen through the weakness of the rules. He exchanged his own concept with theirs, and let the incoming sky fire change its target. The yellow monk, who was originally looking forward to the sacred scene of the sky fire burning the blasphemer, hurriedly fled from the place. Dickoff, as the main combat force, looked particularly solemn. He just stood there, letting the fire explode around him, but no fire hit him directly. This is a kind of luck, and also a magical extraordinary ability. Many streams of fire hit the manor, which had nowhere to escape. Madame Lisa stood up and swept the streams of fire that hit the manor to other places. Apart from that, she did not intervene too much. Of course, there were also some unlucky people who were hit by the streams of fire or were unfortunately affected, and the wailing began to sound continuously. God's blessing, Dickoff whispered, and a milky white light rose around him, turning into white chains that shuttled through every injured yellow monk. The holy self-healing ability made their injuries begin to recover at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the mysterious world, it is really good to have such extraordinary healing abilities. It is a bit similar to the light priest of the sun path. Lord of the deep sea in the distant starry sky, please send down the holy light to judge the blasphemer in front of you. The calls actually attracted white beams of light to hit. The area where Hasta was located has been locked by more than a dozen beams of light. He just took a look, and spit out a ball of black mist, the color of the night, which turned into a surging black tide, swallowing up the dazzling beam of light in an instant. Judgment. Who is judging whom again? Asta deliberately raised a giant holding a black whip behind him. The giant had more than a dozen arms, and each arm held a black whip about tens of meters long. He shouted, "Sinners who blasphemed the gods, come and receive the long whip of judgment." As soon as the voice fell, more than a dozen black whips swung down like black tentacles. Some yellow monks who didn't have time to dodge were whipped directly to death, some had their heads whipped off, and some were cut in half. The bloody and weird judgment brought unparalleled shock. It was not until this time that they realized what the real strength gap was. Blames the madmen, double-minded believers, organizations that have lost their faith, prepare to face God's judgment. Asta, in contrast, regarded all the yellow monks as blasphemers with a condescending attitude, and kept waving the long whip of judgment in his hand. Dickoff knew that he couldn't go on like this. While he was blasting Asta with a group of flowing fire, he shouted quickly, "The movement tonight attracted powerful spiritual creatures. They regarded the young extraordinary man with a mysterious background as their mortal enemy and dragged him into the spiritual world." A strange sound came from the spiritual world, and a claw as big as a mountain and covered with black fur tore through the reality channel, ready to descend. "Get out!" Asta rebuked lightly, and the black fur claw as big as a mountain was quickly retracted, and the spiritual world returned to peace. For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.